Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to share this morning with you, despite the fact that I am probably at this very time still in bed. My name is Dan Commandeur. I'm a usual attendee of the Six, but every now and then I have the pleasure of joining the morning service. So we're continuing now in our series on the 10 Commandments and how we shall live. And we had jealousy, and we had lying, and don't worry, I'm here to say first off, this week we can all relax. After all, I'm sure none of us are stealing. And if we are, it's not like it's as bad as like killing or adultery or some of the other worse sins. I think this week we can all chill out, to be honest. Right? I mean, we look at theft and we look at burglary. We know those are horrible things to do. We wouldn't ever consider doing those things. We know that's wrong. But the little bits and bobs like, perks of the job, taking things from the office, a few benefits here and there. I mean, I'd only be taking things from a faceless organization. They'll never notice if I take a little bit off the top. I'm reminded of the episode of The Simpsons where Homer Simpson gets cable TV for free, and he hooks up this illegal cable, and to his horror, he sees his boss wandering down the driveway in order to watch the boxing match with him. He's throwing this big party for everybody to come and watch, and basically he panics, he slams the door, and he shouts, "Bart, quick, help me hide the stuff I borrowed from work." Borrowed? All right, the stuff I stole from work. Oh, okay. That's what Bart says. It's a great scene. But we have so many different ways of justifying what is basically stealing. So many different adjectives. Acquired, borrowed, some benefits. And I think the first thing that we have to do when we look at this topic is actually to be honest about theft. Not a lot of us now are working from home, many more of us than we did before, and perhaps we have a lot less oversight than we did before. I am the first person to admit that, every now and then it's a slow-moving afternoon, not much is happening. Maybe the YouTube tab slips open, maybe you watch a few funny videos, maybe all of a sudden a couple of hours has passed. I'm very aware, by the way, of the irony of me telling you this via YouTube, just in case you've chosen to catch up with this sermon during your working day in the week. I got you. Shut that tab. But maybe moving beyond, or maybe it's the opposite problem, actually. Maybe you're on furlough at the moment, and maybe you're actually receiving some pressure from your boss or your employer to work even under furlough, thus committing basically fraud. Moving beyond lockdown, maybe it's just dishonest practice, finding loopholes in tax evasion, the things that we say, everybody does it, it's not so bad. But really, if we're going to go any further with this topic, the first thing we have to do is we have to name these things what it is. Stealing is stealing. It's an outworking of our sense of entitlement. It's the opposite of the gratitude in gifts that we've been given by God. We choose to take more than He has given us. And it's the outworking as well of jealousy and coveting, and it's dishonest. So really, this is our first action commandment, whereas in the previous 2 weeks, it links very closely together with do not lie, fantastic sermon from Rob last week, and do not be jealous, do not covet. Great sermon from Jill a couple of weeks. I definitely recommend looking into those, what's going on inside when we choose to steal. But beyond that, it's you might be asking me, why is it so bad? And actually, it's one of the characteristics of our enemy, the devil. Let's turn to John chapter 10, verse 6 to 18. And I'm going to begin from verse 6. Those who heard Jesus use this illustration didn't understand what he meant. So he explained it to them. I tell you the truth, I am the gate for the sheep. All who come before me were thieves and robbers, but the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate. Those who come in through me will be saved. They will come and go freely and will find good pastures. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. A hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him, and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and they know me. Just as my Father knows me, and I know my Father, so I sacrifice my life for the sheep. I have other sheep too that are not in this sheepfold. I must bring them also. They will listen to my voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd. The Father loves me because I sacrifice my life, so I may take it back again. No one can take my life from me. I sacrifice it voluntarily. For I have the authority to lay it down when I want to, and also take it up again. For this is what my Father has commanded. And we see this incredible contrast in this parable of the difference between a hired hand, a thief and a robber, and the good shepherd, the Son of God. And it mentions that startling line there that the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy. You know, he seeks to take, our enemy seeks to take the good things that God has given us, and everything that we've received, our gifts and talents, where we live, various privileges that we have in this nation, they're all gifts from God. And the enemy can take those and then corrupts them, leading us to want more, leading us to lie, to cheat, and to steal to get more, when none of it even belongs to us in the first place. Stealing has this destructive power, and we can't follow this path. After all, God hates sin, and he wants us to be holy. At this point, I wanted to share something that I don't think we talk that much about in church here in Bookham, which is the fear of the Lord, which does not mean that you're sat trembling from this overwhelming sense that God is about to smite you at any given moment. It actually means love and respect and awe, and this sense that God is always there and he is seeing what we're doing. It's actually this sense of, following God and playing to an audience of one, rather than fearing exactly what other people might think of what we're doing and what we say. Because, living in the fear of people is dangerous, especially for now, when so many of us are working at home, the kind of things that we get up to when nobody is watching. Working for him means giving it our all, even when we're alone. I spent some time in the past at Youth with a Mission. It's called YWAM, and they always used to tell this story. I think it was to make us clean more rigorously the base that we stayed on. Basically, they told this story about how, the YWAMers, the missionaries with a true fear of God, used to lift up the rug, and they would sweep out from under the rug and sweep that away when they're doing the whole sweep of the whole room, rather than perhaps lifting the rug and sweeping everything under the rug, throwing the rug down and calling it a day. As my mum and my wife can probably attest, that story did not make a major impact on me. The closest I get to this is maybe every now and then checking underneath the toaster, giving that a bit of a wipe. But needless to say, I've got a long way to go when it comes to fear of the Lord, imagining him there doing every task to the best of our ability. And I've spoken about the thief and the robber, but also in this passage we have this incredible contrast, which is that of the good shepherd. And this is why it's so key. This is why I started off by saying we have to call it out for what it is, because we cannot approach God through the idea that what I'm doing isn't so bad. See, life with Jesus is the complete opposite of what the thief promises and misleads with. What the thief says is, do your best to get ahead, get ahead of the competition, squeeze everything you can out of your circumstances, trying to get as much as you possibly can for yourself. Whereas the Good Shepherd comes along and he asks the question, what can I give? And the authority of Christ here, as it's said in this passage, I have the authority to lay it down when I want to and to take it up again, for this is what my Father has commanded. It's the power of life and death is in Jesus' hands because he chose to sacrifice and to give everything up rather than to scrape and squeeze and get as much as we can. It's actually this life of abundance and living to the full comes from sacrifice, which is a bit weird and counterintuitive, and it certainly feels a bit strange in our context. But the good news is here. Jesus gave up his life for the sheep. He sacrificed himself for us, the sheep. He is generous enough that he actually is giving us his righteousness, because no matter how much we might strain and try our best, we will never meet that level of righteousness without his power. And we've shared in the story of Zacchaeus already this morning, and we see that power from Christ is all about his love. It all stems from his love. That dinner that he had with Zacchaeus completely changed him forever. He went from a man who was exploiting his neighbors and squeezing every penny out of them to a man who wanted to give up half of his wealth to everybody that he met. It's incredible. And that was from an encounter with Jesus, with the living God, with the man who is so generous with his time and so generous with what he had and so generous with his life. And he actually calls us to be the same. We are in the presence of a God who humbled himself to become nothing when he came to earth as a man, as Jesus Christ. I start to look at the objects and materialistic stuff that I've gathered around myself, the way that I live my life, clinging to maybe some gifts or talents that I might have, using them for my self-esteem, and I think to myself, that's so absurd. These are all gifts. None of them are my own. And there's Jesus who had it all, who is the commander of the universe, who sustains the scientific laws. He chose to give it all up in death. And that's the point of his authority. It's this upside down kingdom, and it's amazing. It's so powerful. And actually, the Apostle Paul understood this when he wrote in Philippians chapter 4, 11 to 15. Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. This is the secret to contentment. And once again, as we found out last week from Rob, that, we're to avoid lying, and it turns out the truth is Christ. Once again, we don't have to steal because we have it all. We have a relationship with our Father. He loves us and he welcomes us into his presence. And that love is what transforms us to no longer follow the pattern of the world. Thanks for listening.